Hey folks, it's Saturday vlog. We got some things going on today. Yep, it's still cold. It's still wet and muddy and even snowing a little bit. But we're going to do some things today, by golly. I'm just tired of not being able to get out in the yard. I'm going to do a few things in the yard. Mostly in the house, of course. Saturday, that's my cleaning day. So I'm going to be cleaning. I also have to babysit for a little while today. Did you see my 10 YouTube tips for beginners? If you didn't see that and you're a beginner or you haven't started YouTube yet, you need to watch that. Maybe you don't even have a channel and haven't even thought about it yet. You still want to go watch that video. So check that out. So I'm going to show you a few things I'm doing today. Maybe we can get Lee to show a few things he's doing. He is in the process of moving our horse fence a little bit. The horse is just about blind. I'm thinking about calling the vet and having him put down. That's kind of a hard, difficult thing to decide. Lee doesn't want to, but he's running into the barbed wire fence a lot. And it's sad. And we really need to have him put down. Because Lee doesn't want to put the horse down. He is working on the horse fence to make it a little easier for him to see, and he's moving it somewhat so that he doesn't have as far to go because he's not using the whole thing anymore anyway at all. So I wanted to show that moringa. Look how big that thing's getting. They grow really fast, they say. So there he is, just in probably a week he's grown that much. There's a jar of my tomato soup. I'm fixing to go over and take my mom some soup for lunch and eat lunch with her. She's not been doing good lately. She's been having, her blood sugar's been dropping out a lot, and she's been falling a lot. She has she's diabetic and she has Parkinson's and just got some things, some health issues. And we were at the hospital last night. Her blood sugar had dropped out and she had to go to the hospital, and took a while to get it back up. And so we were at the hospital till, oh gosh, about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm taking my mom a jar of my homemade tomato soup, and I will do this recipe soon and do a video of this recipe. This is delicious. I also want to show you some things that you can put in your compost pile. You don't have a compost pile? Oh, you're kidding me. Everybody has to have a compost pile. If you garden at all, you need a compost pile. It's not hard. You just put up a little wood pallet fence, or you know, build you a little box, or you can just pile it up out in a spot in the yard if you want to. They have compost bins, all kinds of stuff. And it makes for great soil to use in your garden, amend your garden, and fertilize it, and amend your soil. And you can even use it in pots, so you don't have a garden. You use pots. Do you plant in pots? Do you grow anything in pots? You need a compost pile. So you get started. You put some green leaves, some leaves in there, some green grass clippings in there. Get you a bunch of that started, and then start piling the other stuff on top of it. And the other stuff is this stuff. Okay, this is nasty and gross. I'm going to show it quick, and then I'll tell you what's in here. So I have a whole ice cream bucket full of stuff we have used up the last, this is probably about a week's worth. There is eggshells, popcorn, apple peels, tea bags, coffee grinds, banana peels, all kinds of nasty stuff in there. Okay, that's about a week's worth. I will take that out and I will dump that on my compost pile outside. So he is fixing to cut the grass soon. He'll sweep that up and put the grass clippings in there, and we will put some leaves, shredded newspaper. I got plenty of newspaper. I'll shred some of that up, throw that in there. about anything. You don't want meat scraps or greasy stuff. You know, look it up. There's a whole lot of things you can put in there. Now, some things you might feed to your chickens. That's fine. Feed your chickens and throw the rest of it in your compost pile. You don't have chickens? Are you kidding me? Everybody needs some backyard chickens. Even if you live in town, if they will let you, you need some backyard chickens. Get you about 4 hens and a little coop. Build a little small coop, about 3 or 4 hens, and you will have free eggs. Now here's our compost bin. Wayne just has some logs he stuck up there around the sides. He could have made it a little taller, a little bigger. Would have been nice, but he didn't, and we use it, and it works. It works fine, y'all. I know I'm going to get some people that's going to say, oh, that's not a good compost bin, but it works fine for us, believe me. And the one we had before, it finally eventually kind of rotted, but it was made out of wood pallets. We just had 4 wood pallets and dumped everything in the middle. And that worked fine too. It eventually rotted. This will probably eventually rot too. Newspaper out here, eggshells. This is down to the bottom because we've already cleared this out once recently. We put our wood ash in here. Clean out the chicken coop. We throw that in here. You don't want to get too much of those things because it will be too much of, you know, not the right things. There's a certain amount of this and that. You have to look that up if you want to be exact. I just throw it all together. So here's my scraps from today. I would just dump those right in the middle there. And then put some more stuff on top of it. After I get a little bit in there, I'll start turning it. Take a pitchfork or shovel. We have a pitchfork. And start flipping it over and turning it. And before you know it, you'll have the most black, rich soil you can get. And then you can spread that on your garden to help out, or you can use it. If I put it in pots, I usually mix it half and half with some other dirt. I dig up some other dirt and put half compost, half dirt if I'm using it in pots. Mostly I put it on my garden. There's my little herb garden out behind there with the dang parsley going crazy. Nothing else is coming up yet, but that parsley's from last year. It never completely died down. Our grass is starting to grow like crazy. He wants to mow so bad, but it is just too wet. It has just rained and rained, and it's muddy, and it's just too wet. He will probably try to mow before it even gets good and dry, because that's just how he rolls. He can't stand for the yard to be this tall.
That's my garden out there. I've got some onions already coming up. I started moving this fence. The fence did go on up, and it went around this pecan tree here, come down by my well house and over to that post and come back. He's not really losing much ground, but she wants to put a bench here underneath this tree, and so I decided to move the fence back. He's got all this out here that's pasture. There's probably, he's still gonna have probably a good 1.5 acres of pasture out here, so he's not going to be hurting for any kind of grass. Pretty much blind now, so he doesn't need to have a whole lot of room to run around. Just keep him up there closer. If he needs food, I'll go get him some hay. I feed him corn every day, and of a morning and an afternoon. I'll just keep taking care of him until he finally goes. He's still got a shade tree there and elderberry bushes to get under, and then he's also got the lean-to out there on the shed.
A few years ago, I made cookbooks for my mom. She's Granny. Everybody calls her Granny, so I called her Granny. Granny's cookbook. I made this one first on the left. I made it about 20 years ago. I was working at a publishing house and had the good binding, had access to good binding, and so I made this cookbook from a lot of her recipes. I made 50 of them for her to give out for gifts, and so she had 50 of them, and everybody loved the wild game section. That was a hit. And so years later, some of the younger ones that didn't get one had started growing up and wanted one. So I made a second one. This first one has this wild game section, and it has a lot of recipes that my mom and dad used. I grew up on wild game, and a lot of recipes they used were deer, and it's got dove and duck, squirrel, rabbit, several rabbit recipes, even a couple of a coon recipe, and everybody loved that section. Plus my dad made the most delicious biscuits, and we have a biscuit video that Lee done that he uses the same recipe as my dad did and makes them just as good as my dad. So we have a video on that, and that recipe's in this book. And my mom makes the best squash casserole. Everybody loves her squash casserole. It's kind of become a family tradition with her squash casserole. Everybody wants it every time we have a get-together. Everybody wants Granny's squash casserole. So there's a lot of good recipes that she had in this book. But I was working at a publishing house, and when I left there, I left that book, that cookbook, on the computer there. So years later, when everybody wanted one, all the kids that were younger that had grown up or had seen the other cookbooks and didn't get one, wanted one. So a couple of years ago, I made another one. Now, I wasn't working anywhere where I had access to the good binding and stuff, so this one's thinner, and it's just got the I don't know if you can see the staples. It's got the 3 staples down the back, and it's thinner. I kind of condensed it and used the best of Granny's recipes out of here. A lot of these were fillers. Some of it was fillers that she had in other cookbooks that wasn't actually her recipes, because we needed to fill it up and try to make a nice cookbook out of it. But since I had lost that, I had to retype, so I just typed in her best recipes. And the wild game section is in here, and the biscuits and the squash casserole and a lot of other ones that I made about 50 of these, and she gave those out in the last couple of years. And so I was thinking about redoing it and making another one. I'm going to do another Granny's cookbook. This was Granny Walton's cookbook number 2. Cynthia Walton's favorite recipes. There she is. And I'm going to take and add some of the recipes back out of this one over into it. And maybe, I don't know how I'll do the binding, because I don't know if I can find access to a good binding. I know how to do it. I just don't have access to the equipment to do it. I have worked in the publishing industry for about 25 years. I am going to start working on this, and it'll take me a little while, but I'm going to start working on it, and I plan to maybe make that my first thing in the Etsy store. So that's something, if you might be interested in, you can look forward to. I'm going to do a Granny's cookbook with all of those recipes, and do that on the Etsy store. Now, it'll take me a while. I don't know how long it'll take me. Probably a couple months at least. So it's an eventual. I'm just getting the thoughts started on it. So, but maybe in a few months, and I will let you know. I'll do it in a video and let you know when I have it done and ready to be sold on Etsy.
Y'all like us, give us a thumbs up and subscribe.